we're back with more on News Talk Saga 960. So very glad that you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petrona Show. Hey, what a treat. We got Ezra Levant on the show. Ezra, of course, is president of Rebel News. He's also a former colleague of mine with the late, great Sun News Network. I mean, it seems like a long time ago, Ezra, that we had an opportunity to work together at Sun News. I still miss that network. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was part of a time that was coming to an end, the end of an era when big, high-cost TV channels could try and get some deal with the CRTC to be profitable. And I think that we were just a little too late, and there was just not enough political will. But now I don't even know if that would be possible. Everyone's a broadcaster now, and the CRTC is sort of desperate for relevance. I loved every minute of the Sun News Network, but there was a moment in time we'll never get back.
And you have done more than anybody, I think, to continue the work that Sun News was doing. Of course, you've got the Ezra Levant show on Rebel News. It's how do people access that content?
Well, rebelnews.com is your gateway to the whole thing. About 90% of our content is free. We just put it on YouTube and Rumble. But we do have a couple of TV-style shows behind a paywall. It's $8 a month. It's how we pay the bills. We also do some crowdfunding. But 90% of our stuff is free on the internet. And we also have some email subscriptions. So it's there really is a lot. We've actually, I just counted, we have 52 people at the company these days. It's really growing. And we're not just in Canada. We've got a great reporter in Australia named Avi Yamini, who's covering the lockdowns there. And we've got a reporter in the UK named Lewis Brackpool. So I think that Rebel News is, by some measures, a success.
Yeah, I would say so. And you tried to grow. And you were trying to borrow some money from Royal Bank, RBC. You went to them for some money. You wanted to expand. Tell me a little bit about why you went to RBC, which, by the way, I know that you've been dealing with for decades, correct?
Sure. I mean, there's the big five banks, and Royal Bank is the biggest of them all. I've been a client of Royal Bank for over 20 years. My home mortgage is with them. So when I thought, all right, Rebel News is growing, let's see if we can get an office building of our own, because we've been paying rent for 7 years out here in Toronto. So Calgary's real estate market is really soft. It's about 30% vacancy on the office side. And I was out there and I saw this great building, and the price, I mean, it's an impossibly low price for Toronto folks for what it was. And I thought that could be the home of Rebel News. And so, we did our inspections and our due diligence, and we negotiated a bit on the price. And I thought, well, who do I get a mortgage from? Let me talk to the same guys who gave me my home mortgage. So I talked to the Calgary branch of the Royal Bank. They looked at our application. They said, Rebel News, you've been around 7 years. You have no debt. You've got good cash flow. And I personally agreed to guarantee the mortgage, which, isn't always done. But I said, I promise. And of course, Rebel News would be a tenant in there. So these local Calgary bank mortgage guys said, yeah, sounds great. In fact, they even offered me more money than I asked for. They said, well, we'll give you a few $100,000 in a line of credit just in case you need it. They said, we just have to run this by our political desk in Toronto. I think they used a slightly different word than political desk. I'm trying to remember what it was. But they did. But I got a sinking feeling, because I thought, why is that a factor if this meets all the financial criteria? So I sort of had one last phone call where I thought, this is going to be the only time they tell me what's actually going on. Because after they said yes to the mortgage, they said, we'll let you know right away. And a week went by and I didn't hear. So I thought, I got one chance to get the truth here, because they're not going to put it in writing. So I did something I don't do very often. I recorded the phone call. And I said, is everything okay financially with our application? And you can hear, I see you've got, if you go to rebelnews.com, if you go to buythebuilding.ca, you can listen to the recording. I recorded the bank officer saying, yeah, the local branch wants to deal. It's great financially, but head office says you have, quote, strong opinions. That's their word, strong opinions that are causing them to refuse the mortgage. So I'm glad I recorded it, because I don't know if people would believe me if I said, oh, the bank denied my mortgage because of my strong
we
opinion.
can listen to that, Ezra, a little bit. All right, let's hear a little bit of that conversation between Ezra and the individual whom he was dealing with at RBC.
I'll be blunt with you. The bank has been, trying to pry away from certain, clients where they're kind of out there in the media and very strong opinionated.
Okay, very strong opinionated. We can't have that. Boy, and political. So RBC skittish here. Obviously, he had heard about you because if he hadn't, then there'd be no reason to run it past any political desk. I mean, the numbers were all there.
It's confusing because I talked to someone who used to work at that exact branch selling commercial mortgages, and he said that, I mean, the Royal Bank is a very big bank and they do a lot of business. He says that the rule for Calgary is they don't have to run anything by the head office if it's under $10 million. Obviously, this was well below $10 million. So the fact that head office wanted to check it over is unusual. But you'll notice what they said. I mean, and there was another part of the clip that I also published where he was clear, no debt, strong financials. Because if he would have said, look, Ezra, it's tough economic times and you're still a pretty young business, we just don't think it's a good financial risk. All right, and who am I to say otherwise? I mean, maybe Rebel News is not that strong a company, but he didn't say that. He said, you are a strong company. We really like the application. We're actually going to lend you more money than you even asked for. It's your politics that's the sticking point. And that's why I needed to get it on tape. Because if it was just me saying, oh, sour grapes, the only reason I didn't get it is because of my politics, no one would believe me. But they said it. This Calgary mortgage officer said that Toronto stuck the knife in because of my politics. But that is not what banks are about. That's not a credit risk. Having the wrong opinions on the carbon tax or Justin Trudeau is not a credit risk. And they're importing what they call in China a social credit system, where if you have the wrong political views or say the wrong thing, that'll be held against you when you try and get a mortgage or a cell phone or an internet or anything in life. We try and book a flight or book a train ticket. That total surveillance approach to life, the Royal Bank is now doing that. They've got a blacklist. I don't know how I got on it. I don't know how I can get off it. I don't know who else is on it, but I have, in plain language, the mortgage officer and the Calgary branch saying there is a political opinions blacklist and you're on it, buddy.
Is there a way to appeal this decision to higher ups? Is there a way to go to the VP or something like that and say, hey, this isn't fair. This isn't right in Canada.
Yeah, well, I exactly asked that. And the Calgary banker said he would go to bat for me because he really wanted to do the deal. I mean, he probably would get a nice commission out of it too. And he believed in the project. He told me. So he said he was fighting from within to appeal it. I said, look, I'm actually out here in Toronto. I'd be happy to meet with the VP in person or by Zoom or on the phone, and they can ask me any question they like. But obviously, they didn't have any questions for me that they didn't know the answer to. It was my politics. I mean, thank goodness, Rebel News has been successful. We don't have any debt. We are growing. So from and a mortgage, you've got the security of the building. Plus, I was willing to give my personal security, and they know that I'm good for it because I do all my banking there. So there really was no real question for them to ask me because they already know everything they need to know about me. I'm a conservative, and I guess the Royal Bank has a little enemies list. I just think that's gross. I think of a barber shop, and if a barber said, "Get out of here, Levant, I'm not cutting your hair," I might be mad, but okay, I can just go 2 blocks down the road and get another barber. It's just a barber. Theoretically, I could even do it myself. But a chartered bank, there's not that many of them. They have lots of government privileges, and they borrow money more cheaply than mere mortals. They have insurance. They're backed up. They're bailed out by the government. They are a quasi-governmental organization, and for them to say we're now going to have an enemies list based on strong opinions, it's much worse than your local barber saying, "Hey, you get out of here, Levant." They're saying you have the wrong opinions. You will not be entitled to be part of public life in this financial economy.
Yeah, and they're regulated. The financial sector is. I mean, there's certain things that they can't do. They tried uniting a number of years ago. I think it was going back to Paul Martin, where a lot of the banks decided they were going to hook up and he put the kibosh on that. So they're subject to regulation. And I think this raises a huge question, one that maybe should be brought up in a public policy sphere, which is that the deal now with you guys? So if I go to TD Bank or if I go to CIBC and maybe I have a political opinion that somebody there doesn't like, that I can be turned down for a mortgage, I could be turned down for another loan, for a student loan. Maybe my interest rates will be a little higher, because of my views. Is that where we're going there? So I think this needs to be brought up in the political sphere. Maybe some of our politicians should be raising it with the Minister of Finance. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if that'll happen because, Rebel News doesn't have a lot of friends in the establishment. But you raise a good point because it's a very thin line between politics and, let's say, religion. Let's say you're a believer in something like the Falun Gong, or let's say you're, pro-life. That's a position that is political, but it can be a religious opinion. A lot of parts of religions and politics overlap. So are you going to ban people who have a different view on, I don't know, social and moral issues? Now you're really getting punitive. And it reminds me of when Justin Trudeau demanded that anyone who applied for a summer jobs grant had to sign an attestation that they agreed with him on controversial social policy. I just really don't think banks should be getting into that business. The Royal Bank does a lot of business in communist China. So apparently they're fine with that regime. It's not against the rules for a convicted criminal to get a bank account. Obviously we believe in rehabilitation. If someone served their debt to society, give the man a bank account. How's he going to get a paycheck without a bank account? So we allow literally murderers to have a bank account, but not conservatives. This is not the path we want to go to, certainly not for something as powerful and privileged as a chartered bank.
Extremely dangerous. And it also reminds me of something that happened during the Obama administration, where they used the tax arm in the United States to target people who, for instance, own guns, own firearms, and people who had a conservative background, Tea Party members. Mm-hmm. These are people who were targeted by the tax administrators in the United States for their political views. And that was subject to some scrutiny and outrage, and justifiably so, in the United States. What's your next move, Ezra? You want to continue to grow your business. Is there another bank you can go to, another institution? What are you looking at here?
Well, I put out a video, and I know you just played part of it. So I told people what was happening. And I am pleased that a number of private mortgage lenders said, hey, I'll take that deal. If it was good enough for the Royal Bank's Calgary branch office, it's good enough for me. That's the crazy thing, is I wasn't asking people to bail out Rebel News or to do Rebel News a favor. I was asking for a commercially competitive mortgage offer from Canada's biggest bank that they would make tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars off over the lifetime of the loan. So I wasn't actually looking for a gift from them. So a lot of folks said, Ezra, we'll give you that same loan. But I don't think that's good enough, because when you're a chartered bank, I think you have to behave. And this has only happened just before Christmas. I haven't had time to properly come up with a plan. What's amazing to me is I think you're actually the first Canadian journalist to ask me about it. Epoch Times did a story about it. They're based in America, but they did have a Canadian reporter ask me about it. Other than that, no Canadians. Breitbart did a story. I went on the Tucker Carlson show the other day. Mediaite, a left-wing U.S. news site, did a story. So it's big news in the States, but you are actually, other than the Epoch Times, the first Canadian journalist to even talk about it. And maybe it's because I'm elbows up and I'm always poking the media party in the eye. But so what? If you can ban a mortgage on Ezra Levant and Rebel News today, who's tomorrow? Is it a left-wing group? Is it a Greenpeace group? Is it a religious group? This is a terrible trend we want to nip in the bud. And I think that by letting the Royal Bank get away with this, we're sending them a signal. Yeah, go ahead and have as many private blacklists as you like. Let me throw one last thing at you, Mark. There's a bit of a revolving door between the Royal Bank and the Liberal Party. You might remember that Trudeau's first ambassador to China was John McCallum, senior executive of the Royal Bank. Trudeau just appointed another senior RBC executive to the Senate just a couple years ago. RBC makes donations to pet liberal causes. So I think it's a real, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And I don't think that's a healthy thing for an independent bank to do, to be like an errand boy for any political leader. I wouldn't want them doing that for political leaders on the right. So I think we're in a dangerous place here.
I hope that RBC has been thoroughly embarrassed by this. I don't know if this guy got in a little bit of trouble with his employers because he was too honest with you when he was responding to you rather than giving you a line like, oh, well, we found some issues with your numbers and we haven't been able to make it work, which, as you said yourself, might have ended the whole story right there. Instead, he was honest. And I can't help but think that he had some explaining to do with some of his bosses over at RBC.
Yeah. And, I haven't contacted him in the last week, but I hope that they don't punish him. If they do, I would, if I heard that he was punished or God forbid fired, I would certainly find a lawyer to help him. And frankly, if he was fired, try and help him find a new job. That's why I didn't name him. I just don't want to have him subjected. I mean, obviously the Royal Bank knows who he is, but I didn't want outside people, pro or con, to hassle him. I think I call him a whistleblower because he's so honest. And you're right. I don't think he was supposed to tell me that there's a bank blacklist, but he just did.
Exactly. Rebel News, Ezra Levant. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir. Hope you can come back again soon.
Thanks very much, Mark. Great to see you.
Got to take a quick time out, commercial break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petrone Show after this.
1, 2, 3. Nice to be in orbit.
A lot, Ezra. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Great to see you again. Talk to you later.
Great to see you. Yeah. Come back again. You're doing a fantastic job. You really are. And I think stories like this should absolutely be in the media.
Yeah.
And somebody should raise it.
You really are the first guy. I'm not kidding. I mean, I have to admit the Epoch Times did it, but I regard them as sort of they are Canadian, but other than that, you're the first guy.
Have you considered doing, I think I asked you this one other time, Rebel Radio type of deal where you could have almost like a live element to your website? You could just go on and see this kind of.
And that worked for a bit. YouTube demonetized it, which took some of the oomph out of it. And I got sort of busy with other things, but I would like to get back into it. I just don't know how to make that pay.
Yeah, I don't either. But if you ever figure it out and you want to work together, let me know. Maybe we could chat.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
I'd tell you if I figure that out. Thanks, Mark. Great to see you.
Cheers, brother. Take care.
Bye. See you. Bye-bye.